Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We resume our program with the first of four fireside chats on important issues of the day. To address the game changing nature of social media across multiple platforms, please welcome Larry Weber, Chairman and CEO of RacePoint Global. He's the founder of Weber Shandwick, the largest PR firm in the world, and his fifth book, The Digital Marketer, has just been released.
Hi, I'll be a little less formal than the last panel, but I wanted to pick up a little bit on what makes us competitive. But first, I usually do a little bit of survey. How many have been on Google today? How many have been on LinkedIn? Facebook? Anybody watch a YouTube today or yesterday? How about a Vine? No Vine. All right. Well, let's see, there's a crowd a little different. So about 20 years ago, this is to answer the question about what's made us competitive and competitive advantage, and then I'll get into a bunch of stories about social media and how it's impacting our commerce, our lives, our innovation, our entrepreneurship. And then I'll take a few questions and I'll get out of here. But about 20 years ago, I got a call. My main office was in Cambridge, Mass, at Kendall Square, which at the time was not as fancy as it is today. In fact, our office was about $14 a square foot. It's now $70 a square foot there. But anyway, I got a phone call from a famous professor at MIT named Michael Drutuzos. And he called me and he said, Larry Weber, he was bigger than me, and he had Greek accent, and he said, I want to come see you because there are two Greek professors on this campus, and one is famous and one is not, and I'm the one that's not. And I have done the most to change the face of technology and innovation. And I'd like to bring a little British man with me and introduce him to you. And his name was Tim Berners-Lee. And his name now is Sir Tim Berners-Lee. But anyway, that said, I said, sure, come on along. And Michael comes in and he explains Ethernet, spreadsheet, what they had accomplished at their lab to date. And he also brought a little videotape. Remember those, anybody? Okay. And we happened to have a machine, all right, the video machine. And he said, I want to show you this video. And what this video showed was a 1981 interview of Michael with then Bryant Gumbel, the anchor of the Today Show at the time. And it was on the occasion of a best-selling book that Michael had written with a gentleman named Robert Solow, who also, you might remember, won the Nobel Prize in Economics in, I think it was 1987. So the book was called Made in America, and the last panel was talking about how Germany and Japan in the early 80s were, economies were chugging along and America was just going to fade. Well, Made in America argued that not only would America not fade, but that it would almost triple in its GDP in the next 15 years because of one word: software. And I would argue that one of our greatest advantages, all right, is software. By the way, on the video, this was just at the time IBM PCs were coming out. Does everybody remember the commercials with Charlie Chaplin and the boxes? And, it shows you how old we all are here, But anyway, the video, Brian Gumbel goes, so tell us about the future of this computing. And isn't this just a fad, this personal computing kind of thing? And Michael looked right at Brian Gumbel and he said, not only is it not a fad, this is 1981, everybody. Not only is it not a fad, but in the next 30 years, all these computers will be connected to one another. You'll be able to buy and sell things. You'll be able to talk with your doctor who might be in India and you might be in Moline. And you're going to be able to join little communities of interests. And Brian Gumbel rolled his eyes and said, professors. And it ended. Well, one of the big changes that has occurred over the past few years, and it started probably in 98, 97, and also with Tim Berners-Lee, who, by the way, presented after Michael and said in my office and said, oh, I have this little thing called HTML, and I think it's interesting, and I call it the World Wide Web. And I'll always remember that because I didn't understand at all what he was talking about. But if you take that evolution, you take the evolution of software, and you take how many of you are parents? All right, we take all of the last 20 years of us over-scheduling our children. They had absolutely no time to do anything in the real world almost. So what happened? They turned to the digital world. They turned to a world that they could communicate with their friends and colleagues even, and to share research, to share fun, and there you have the beginnings of what was called Friendster in 97, 98, and then of course Facebook, which now has 18% of the human population on their platform. All right. I have a couple slides that I'm not going to talk to, by the way. I just put up to keep your attention. But wait. The next story I want to tell you is about my daughter who graduated from her $58,000 a year college, was home to, do I still have your attention? So she's living at home the past year, again, after graduating from her fancy Ivy League school, and I noticed we were both home on Monday nights. I said, do you want to watch a TV show together? And she said, sure, and I let her pick it, and she picked The Voice. Have we all heard of this show? Okay, so I sit down to watch The Voice with my glass of wine and maybe my iPad or my iPhone, and that's it. Hannah sits down and has a glass of wine. She has a laptop open, all right? Half of her laptop is she's doing work. The other half, she's shopping on a site called Lulu. And guess what? Lulu has a Facebook app that can let her share the sundresses she's looking at with her friends before she buys them, all right, so that she can get their idea of what they like. And guess what? She had given Lulu her phone number. And while she's shopping and doing work and having her glass of wine and tweeting that Usher made a mistake as a judge, all right, she is texted from Lulu, while you're looking at those two sundresses, Hannah, we'll give you a third free if you buy those two in real time. Of course, she bought all three. She has a job finally, you know. Next story, you're going to say, all right, Larry, you really have to get a life. How many people have shopped on Amazon? All right, so I spent an hour and a half on Amazon a few months ago. Like, do you have a life, Larry? All right. And why was I on for an hour and a half? I got a permission-based email, and it said, we know you like John Updike, American author who died a couple years ago because you bought some books. We have new rare video footage of him, all right, reading from his rabbit books at Harvard. I said, okay, that's interesting. So I went and I watched those videos. That was very cool. I then noticed there were other videos of other authors. I noticed one of my favorites, William Faulkner. There was a video of him receiving the Nobel Prize for Literature. I didn't know that was available. Remember that. Just remember that I watched a William Faulkner video, all right? Then I went and read a review of my last book, and somebody hated it in Taiwan. I don't know why they disliked this book so much, you know, but I couldn't say anything. Then I had just read a colleague, Malcolm Gladwell's new book, something about what the dog saw or something, and I said, Malcolm, how can you write The Tipping Point for the fourth time? And then I bought 11 books, all right? And I looked at about 30 books. What did Amazon get? It took an hour and a half, and I was happy. They got more data on me than in an hour and a half. And the next time I went on Amazon, what did they offer me? The upcoming biography of William Faulkner for $5 off. Would you like it? Yes. Data, analytics, all coming from unstructured places. Hugely impactful for companies especially, governments, universities. I was in charge of, for some reason I've been in charge of touring universities with my kids. And since we have heads of universities here as members, I thought I'd share this story. I went to 30 websites of universities a couple years ago. I'm convinced that the same agency or design group does every university's website, because every landing page of university has a smiling African American, Asian American, and white American carrying a backpack going across a green in fall with the leaves changing. And they all look really happy. And it all says, visit us, about us, all right? And all 29 were the exact same, and nobody had a social interface. I couldn't believe this. They were all separate on Facebook, all right? And the other thing was, finally, a little school in Connecticut, it'll go unnamed right now. Well, I'll say it, all right? Trinity College, and I press, all right, visit us. And guess what? All of a sudden, the screen goes blank, and a young woman comes out with a Trinity t-shirt on, drops her backpack and goes, "Hi, my name is Caroline. Trinity College has changed my life. Come with me on a virtual tour and I'll show you why." And I went, "Go, girl." Right? I mean, why wouldn't anybody else do this? Then, of course, I go to the prestigious university my oldest daughter graduated from, and I wanted to just see who the Board of Trustees was. And I go up into the search box, Board of Trustees. I get a news release from 4 years earlier about somebody that was appointed. Misuse, again, of the technologies and the availability of information that's available to us, all right? It's time for a new slide, I think. The increase of social media, all right, across all channels is extremely important for our society and for our innovation, and believe it or not, our competitive advantage. Why HTML was originally developed, if you ask Tim, all right, was that he was frustrated he couldn't share research with other researchers in a large-scale way, all right? Now you're adding so much more immediacy to what is a society that has now become an engagement society. We are done with broadcasting. If any of you invest that much or anything in television advertising, what a mistake. All right, this is a world, again, of engagement, one that's really becoming extremely dependent on the combination of software and content, and also a highly visual world, all right? Increasingly now we do, for IBM last month, we did 5 2-minute videos for YouTube, for their customers. Business-to-business example, building a closed community, all right, for CIOs of healthcare companies. Think about it, all right? I get pushback from some of the millennials on the closed community, all right? Password only, but you're going to see more of those, all right? And important, using the, again, the attractive things of social media, all right? But highly visual, highly video formatted. My son last night sent me 3 vines to look at. These are 6 seconds long, but they were funny. Time for that always gets people's attention. But search, social search, the next big take that we're going to have. How we're going to share, how we're going to engage. All right. These are all areas that are focused, again, on customer centricity. All right, we're seeing the change right now. I should tell you that story, which is when I started in business in 1980, 79, there were only 2 C-level titles. How many remember that? There was the CEO and the CFO. I was in Cleveland. I couldn't get my new bride who grew up in Boston to stay there, so I had to follow her to Boston. And when I got to Boston, there was CEOs, CFOs, and all these MIS. Remember that title? And guess what? There were so many MIS people by the mid-'80s that they had a CTO, and the CTOs bought so much software that they had to get a CIO. And then we went through the 90s with all those funky C titles. Remember the Chief Human Officer, Chief Knowledge Officer, Chief Strategy Officer, and the fastest growing in the last 5 years, the Chief Marketing Officer. So anyways, I concluded that every time we screw up a category of business, we just get a new C title. All right, but the big change now, I'm seeing CMOs changing to Chief Customer Officers. And guess what they're in charge of? Everything from customer support, customer engagement, all with the social underlying, all right? All with the social underlying. And why is that? Because the customer is the most important focus of every enterprise, whether it be a nonprofit or a for-profit, all right? And I also see IT bifurcating because of social media. What do I mean by that? I see 2 IT departments in the future. The internal IT, which is more for the cloud, security, energy, et cetera. But I see now this rapidly growing IT of customer centricity. So the software that helps get you closer to customers, makes your mortgage system better, collects data and analyzes that data so that you're better with more effective with your customers. All right. There's new companies like Marketo, Eloqua, if you've heard of these, HubSpot. There's so much software available. Now, I'm not saying, even though I'm looking almost everywhere I look, maybe it's because of the way the world I live in, but now so many younger parents are looking to send their kids to coding camp. All right, let them go play tennis and and swim. But there is an element of understanding how to develop apps, to understanding basics of software development for the future, to keep us competitive and innovative. I'm convinced of that. So again, the importance of software, the increase of devices. Question for you all, what happens in 5 years? Here's my one big prediction, all right? 5 years from now when all smartphones are free. Now what happens? The impact of not just social media, but the impact of anything you need, when you need it, all right? And who was it, Sam or somebody talking about the millennials, which I have 2. I don't know what the 18-year-old is. I guess that's a different, we calling them X or something? I don't know what we're calling them. But I do know this, that if I wrote a 6th book on marketing, it would be the post-marketing era, all about transparency and moral purpose. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for companies, all right, that are doing the right thing, still make money, but are doing the right thing, all right? And I think that's also, at least in some way, the impact of social media, all right? Having that openness, that transparency, that connectivity, all right, I think is really critical in that competitive set. Entrepreneurial thinking and design thinking, all right, I think also came out a lot in a new way, all right, from the way we share information and the way it's getting micro-segmented. The future of social networks is not Facebook, it's micro-segmented communities. Even though on Facebook, finally, there's a community for podiatrists that specialize in the big toe. I'm serious, all right? But what I mean by micro-segmented communities is you're going to go very deep into the future of steel and materials, all right? You're going to go very deep into whatever category that you're looking at, all right? Social media can help with education as well, all right? And I was talking with the plumbing, pipe fitters and plumbing. I mean, to recruit kids, millennials, you know, how you use and how your more sophisticated use of social media, what you guys are doing, you know, in the way you educate, in the way you use social media, all right, to connect in an open and thoughtful way. Big complaint, you know, the privacy issues. I actually think that the world is working. A number of our universities are working on the identity layer for the internet so that you can own your own data just like you own your money, but you still give it to a bank. By the way, that oldest daughter has never physically been in a bank. She's 24 years old. Never been in a bank. Very happy with her banking relationship, however. All right? So, you know. But the real trick is you people will probably disagree with me on this. I don't care if somebody knows what I bought or what I didn't buy. All right? That part of the privacy issue. I will care as health data becomes available. Now you're getting serious. So that's why I think an identity layer is going to be extremely, you know, extremely important. One story about data, I was on a panel with, in fact, he was here 2 years ago, I think, Howard Schultz. How many have bought a Starbucks? All right, so he asked after the panel, and I'll take questions in a second. He said, Larry, would you be a guinea pig for one of our marketing programs? I said, sure. And I filled out a sort of survey monkey. Has anybody, you know, done that kind of thing? And it basically was when you go to Starbucks, about what time do you go? What's your favorite drink? If you do buy food, what do you buy? So, and I forgot about it. So I'm at the Olympics in London with my middle daughter. And we wake up, we're going to go out to the Olympic Village, and I see a Starbucks across the street, and I get a text from Starbucks, just by coincidence. And it said, Larry, please come across to 321 Kensington High Street for your free iced espresso and 50 pence off your breakfast sandwich. I went, cool. Of course, my daughter said, Dad, that's creepy. You could be hit by a drone. And I said, I don't know why I don't think that's creepy, you know? But I went in and I held up my phone, and guess what? I got a free coffee, and I got money off the breakfast sandwich, and I was just fine with that, believe it or not. And I think there's going to be more of that through social lens of digital loyalty, digital couponing, et cetera. I think you can see now more serious use of social media across platforms. Different companies are using, how the popularity is going to only grow. In fact, I look at some of the sponsors here. You can see the kind of thought leadership that not only can occur in universities, but, you know, John Deere, what is the future of farming? What is the future of appliances? But more important, what's the future of energy use? You know, and how is that? And so, why would you be marketing a washing machine when you could be marketing a whole lifestyle that you believe in? And you use social media to do that. The data that's coming in is huge. You start to add sensors to the data collection, and now the mass amount of data that you're going to have when you're wearing sensors in your shoes, in your clothing, when there's sensors on stop signs, all right, collecting data, all right, on the road. You put that all together and how that works. My 85-year-old father looked up from dinner this summer and he said, Google sucks. And I said, Dad, why do you say that? And he goes, I just ask one specific question on a side effect of a drug I'm taking, and it gives me 10,000 answers. Social media works to edit that kind of stuff down. And how do you work, and how do you work as a group, and how do you innovate as a group? I think just my sources. The importance, I think, of most innovations, the greatest innovations of our day, when I look back, and I know I've talked with Keenan, my friend Keenan, about this, but the greatest innovations actually disappear. The greatest technologies disappear. They become embedded so much in our lives and our society that we don't really think about them. In the next 5 to 7 years, we won't be saying social media, social networks. You know, you're going to have the places you want to go, the digital environments that make you happy or fulfill you or things you learn from. All right, I think it's going to disappear, and that's what makes it, to me, all right, more impactful than television was the last 50 years. That we were only beginning to see the impact of connectivity, all right? And again, inning one, when smartphones are free around the world, and I hope connectivity is free around the world, as I tell our senator from Massachusetts, Ed Markey. So, and I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. All right, so that's my little gig. I hope that was both entertaining and somewhat enlightening. I'd love to answer any questions on, from a consumer perspective, the future of social media, the web, software, the things that I live in every day. Yeah.
What about voting?
You know, voting's an interesting thing. I'm a big believer. I blew this prediction, okay? As this was all happening and we did HTML, I'm like, what happens when you can vote from home? Doesn't that change democracy completely? Because you could have 90% turnout. So that means if you just do the math, somebody could get 11% of the vote and become president. All right, so that's sort of scary, all right, in one way, maybe not, kind of thing. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to vote on our device. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. I think people are afraid of fraud, you know, but what was the hanging chat? I mean, you know, so, but what I do believe in finally, and what I was going to say, is digital advocacy is finally here. So, you know, it took so long for, especially this town, to understand the power and the impact of digital advocacy. We have a product called the Digital Bus. And the idea was, in the old days, people would get on a bus in Omaha and they'd come to Washington to protest what was happening. All right, I argue, why not fill a digital bus with 2 million people that agree on the same thing? Take that to the Hill, where the average age of an aide on the Hill is 27, and they're tweeting at least 100 times a day on average, 100 times a day. All right, but Twitter, remember, is a broadcast vehicle, even though it's social. All right, so I think there's nothing stopping us from voting, you know, and again, digital advocacy, though, is here to stay. It's going to be a huge market. All right, Bill.
The bricks and mortar retail reinvention struck me that a Barnes and Noble, might think about the Faulkner video. How would you assess what I see as the relative slowness of traditional retailers to embrace what you seem to see so clearly?
Yeah, I think, and we have worked with a lot of retailers. I think what most of them missed the boat 10 years ago when they started building the jumbo stores, especially like from my own hometown, Staples, who started building superstores when, you know, some people enjoy shopping experience, but I don't know about shopping for ink cartridges, you know. So to do the analytics of that, and I think what's happening is the smarter retailer is combining the physical experience and the digital experience, and they're coming together, like a Lululemon, who had some PR issues, but they're obviously, but you know, they're combining this sort of digital. Nordstrom's has done a very good job of combining digital and physical. People still want a physical sometimes experience, obviously, but it's going to have to go hand in hand with the digital experience, and it's got to feel the same. Much like you go in your favorite store and you just like the way it feels, digital environments are going to have to be created that give you that same feeling, that it's easy, that it's comfortable, that I can share, that I can buy simply, that kind of thing. The other thing is around, innovation in these places. There's still loads of innovation to be had in retail. It was interesting to listen to Jeff Bezos say a few months ago that I'm not in retail, and everybody in the audience, what do you mean you're not in retail? He said, I'm the biggest sucker of data there is. So when retailers start to understand they're in the data business, that the product, the outcomes of things are expected. Look at Tesla, what they're doing, Why Michigan didn't try to get that battery factory is beyond me, all right? And fine, for the great state of Nevada, that's terrific. But, look for the innovations that are going to change the job landscape, that are going to change the way we do things, I think is extremely important. So listening to the data, yes?
Tilak Agarwal from IBM.
IBM, yes, one of my clients.
Thank you for a really excellent presentation. I had a comment and a question.
Sure.
My comment is that you've described the world, I think, very accurately. But one of the things that I'm very convinced about is the combination of social and mobile and cloud. The rate of change is just exponential. I've never seen three exponentials come together at the same time. So my comment from a competitiveness perspective that I haven't really seen addressed today is that speed is going to be absolutely critical in this new world going forward.
Yep.
And my question to you, you sort of said there'll be 2 IT departments in the future. I actually think that...
There'll be 10.
No, I actually think that the engagement side getting coupled very tightly with the back end is where a lot of innovation is going to take place. And some of you may have heard of the recent Apple IBM announcement,
Yep.
and that's what it's all about.
Yep.
It's really to get the systems of engagement and the mobile systems very tightly coupled to the back end.
So I just agree with that, and that goes deeper into it. But what I will comment on is obviously everything about business and competitive advantage today is about quality and speed. So I mean, if you had to pick 2 words, quality, speed, a third word would be customer engagement. Quality, speed, customer engagement are probably the 3 most important thing. And here's another dangerous futurism from me. I actually think we aren't going to see any more giant disruptions in the technology or the innovation landscape over the next few years. I think there's going to be a refinement of what we have because everything has come so fast. Almost like in the Renaissance where there was this huge, burst of new, tools to paint, to sculpt, to, printing, all that. It took, centuries then to refine those kinds of things. Sure, might there be some smaller disruptions? I mean, Pinterest, is that a disruptive technology? No, it's a different interface that 16-year-olds to 21-year-olds are far more familiar with. So if you're in the business of trying to get 16 to 21-year-olds and your departments don't use Pinterest interfaces, they're going to lose out. So, I mean, that to me is not disruptive, but that is understanding innovations. 2 more questions? Keenan.
Thanks a lot for really stimulating presentation. So I'll go out and a little bit of make 2 comments and ask a question. I had the great fortune of knowing Dertussos that era, and I think people were expecting robots to come, aliens to come, and
the aliens came, I think.
They did, and invaded us in the form of software.
Right.
And now software is everywhere as really the equivalent of aliens. They command our bodies, they command our systems, and if the aliens, that is software, left, I think the civilization today would simply collapse. So they're here and as robots. And I think in social media, another perspective is, and I also look at my kids, what's going on is emotional reconfiguration. I think technology outpaced our emotions. And me, the old generation, I'm dissatisfied. With all the enormous progress, this is the most prosperous time in the world. We just got done with the session in the morning. It was all about complaints. And we can't appreciate the amazing things that have been accomplished. I think emotionally we're immature. But the new generations are getting their emotions reconfigured in a fundamental way.
agree.
And they are coming to understand life in ways that I don't think I personally am capable of. But here's my question. You said you don't see any disruptive innovations. I see one that is absolutely huge. That's money. It is about to be transformed, and the very basis of trade is about to be transformed. And the barter is just around the corner. Just like I can buy things from Amazon by using my credit card and this and that, I can also engage in tremendous amount of barter, which can really radically transform economy. So what do you say to that? My
Keenan,
question.
I agree with that, but I would also say the concept of Bitcoin disruption has been around for decades. I mean, conceptually, it's the adoption of that. And as long as there's governments, it's going to be hard to adopt that disruption, in my opinion. And on your emotional part, absolutely right. The reason we're all going to heaven is because we had to learn word processing software and all this crap over the first 20 years of the computer industry, all right, that just drove us nuts. And now our kids don't have to learn any of that. Why do you even have, you don't need computer labs, at least for the everyday, you know. You don't, if it doesn't work, I'm leaving it, you know, next, you know, what's going on. I guess I'm out of time. All right, thank you very much, everybody.